Dried pig's blood. Ugh. Okay, moving on. Oh, fish and chips is bloody delicious. Let's have a look at some jellied eel pictures. Oh my god. Cauliflower cheese. Oh, like we're already building our beige fortress. Ugh, that is f***ing gross. Okay, next up, more beige shit. What is this? It looks like someone's just squatted over on your dinner table and taken a big old dump. I'm hungry. Haggis is a savoury pudding. Is it a pudding? I don't think it's a pudding. Awful. I mean, there's absolutely no sustenance to this dish whatsoever. Would you eat this? Hiya, welcome to Easy English. So today I have an idea to rank some of the most stereotypical British food we have on offer. And I'm using my makeshift table, a well-being foot spa. Okay, let me set up my desk. Here we go. Okay, so I'm on tiermaker.com, which is a customizable tier, and you can see that we have the rankings from S, which I guess stands for super, all the way to G. But let's rename these. Bloody delicious. We have well tasty, scrummy, pretty good, alright, which is the most English adjective to use, not bad, which basically means not good, gross, mingin. So there's 8 categories from bloody delicious to mingin. Let's go through and look at some of these stereotypical British dishes. Look how beige everything is. Right, let's start then. Let's just remember, just put one thing to the side, that I am a vegetarian, but I'm gonna let that slide. So the first one is a bloody classic, the bacon sarnie. It's one that you'd get at a Greasy Spoon cafe in the morning, and I'd have it with some lovely, lovely HP sauce or brown sauce, which is like a vinegary ketchup. That, especially if you're hungover after a heavy night of drinking, that is bloody scrummy. I'm gonna go scrummy. I'm not going to go for the top tier yet because I think there's better stuff coming. Okay, next up, bangers and mash, a colloquial term for sausages. So these will just be sort of oven or fried sausages on, and mash is when you boil and then like smush a potato into a creamy base. Now bangers and mash is pretty basic. That one particularly looks dry. So I'm going to say it's not bad, which is, yeah. Not my kind of thing. Beef Wellington, beef but wrapped in a pastry from what I can remember. I'd never really had this that much. It looks like a lot of meat in a pastry, and look how beige that is. That is one of the most beigest dishes. Ugh, nah, it's not on my dish. It's gonna go not bad because it looks okay, but I guarantee you that is dry. Dry as the Sahara. This is the pièce de résistance. Even as a vegetarian, I miss this very much. Black pudding, which is dried pig's blood. It comes in the form of a sausage, and you chop it into these like cylinders. This with tomato ketchup is banging, and it's going to go in the bloody delicious section. Oh, it's a bit of a love it or hate it kind of dish, black pudding. I mean, it's not really a dish. It's like a side piece it's like a part of a dish. Typically a fry up in the morning. You get also a Greasy Spoon with your bacon sandwich. People either love this or hate this because, yeah, dried pig's blood. Ugh. Okay, moving on. Cauliflower cheese. Oh, who doesn't love melted cheese? Melted cheese on anything is really good. This is something that I would make with a roast dinner. Super simple. That is going to go in the well tasty section. Look at that, we're forming our tier. You might think this is not a British dish, but this dish was actually invented in Birmingham. Now we have a big Indian influence in Britain, and I'd imagine most Brits can't handle some of the spice of typical Indian food. So we made a dish that all English people can withstand, and it's the chicken tikka masala. That would probably go somewhere around here. I like things a bit spicier, so it's going to go into the scrummy category. Okay, next up, more beige. This is an interesting one. Let me find. Look at these two. We have cottage pie and shepherd's pie. Cottage pie and shepherd's pie are basically exactly the same dish, which would be a minced meat with like a cheesy mash sometimes top that's sort of grilled in the oven. And the main difference would be the meat inside. So shepherd's pie is a lamb dish and cottage pie is a beef dish. I've always preferred lamb. So lamb is going to go into the scrummy and cottage pie is pretty good. Okay, here is a real typical British dish. This is a breakfast thing. Crumpets. You have to try a crumpet. It's the weirdest thing you've ever seen. You can't tell how big these things are from this picture, but they are like a small disc. And it's kind of like a mixture of a bready pancake. They fit inside a toaster. They're made to perfectly fit inside a toaster. And then you'd put like salted butter on, or even Marmite, which is a whole other world to open up into if you're going down the Marmite front. Also pretty good hangover food, I'd say. So yeah, this is going up there somewhere. This is going to go in the well tasty category. Like we're already building our beige fortress. Next up, I don't know what faggots are. Okay, faggots are meatballs made from minced offcuts and offal. Offal is a word you always have to look out for, because offal should just basically be called the bits you don't really want to eat from an animal. Offal. I've never had this before, but just look at it. It looks like someone's just squatted over on your dinner table and taken a big old dump. So it's going in the minging category. Just the name alone sounds disgusting. Here we go. Here's a classic that everyone associates with Britain. Fish and chips. Can't beat it. And some battered haddock or cod. I'm hungry. Fish and chips is bloody delicious. Okay, here we go. Here's the king of British foods, the full English. Let's have a look what they've actually got on this full English. Fried egg, decent. Beans, bacon rashers. Topical, a fried tomato. Everyone gets it, but no one eats it. A couple of bits of toast. Mushrooms, I think, and a sausage. It's pretty good. So I feel like it's missing something. Black pudding. So let's do the right thing and stick it next to the black pudding. If you're hungover or you're having a lazy weekend, you've got to get on that. But expect to get real meat sweats and for your cholesterol level to go through the roof. Okay, a stereotypical Scottish dish. Haggis. I had it once and it was actually really nice. Haggis is a savoury pudding. Is it a pudding? I don't think it's a pudding. A bit like offal. As far as I'm aware, it's just all the bits from a sheep made into a nice mince. So this is going to go in the scrummy section. Okay, Lancashire hot pot. Sounds dead fancy, but really it's just potatoes and lamb. But look how hearty that looks. It looks really nice. I don't remember having it. Lancashire hot pot is a stew originating in Lancashire in the northwest of England. It consists of lamb or mutton, which is an old lamb, a granny lamb, and onion, topped with sliced potatoes and slowly baked. What can you go wrong with potatoes and onions? Never. I just don't really remember having this, so it's going to go in the alright section. Now, I know something that's going to go directly into the minging aisle. That is jellied eels. The word jelly and eel should never be put together. That is f***ing gross. Let's have a look at some jellied eel pictures. Oh my god. Okay, let's stop every time something sounds disgusting. The dish consists of chopped eels, boiled in a spiced stock that is allowed to cool and set like a pot, like a pottery set, forming a jelly, and it's usually served cold. So this, from what I know, is something that is a very typical London thing to have, and I did actually have it once, and it was as disgusting as it sounds and as it looks. But when in Rome, do as the Romans do. if you're in London, you should try some jellied eels, just so you've done it and just so that everyone can throw up when you tell them. So yeah, jellied eels is going next to the faggots. Okay, so next up we have kippers, which are just like tiny fish from what I'm aware of. I've never had it. Look at that. Fish on toast. Fish with eggs. Okay, so it's a typical breakfast dish from what I can see. I've never had it before. I do like fish, but fish for breakfast? That is pretty disgusting. It's not going to go in the minging section, but let's put it in the gross. Okay, so next up we have bubble and squeak, which is essentially just ground up potatoes and cabbage, all mixed together and fried. Is the like ultimate peasant food. It's probably going to go in the gross section. What is this? It just looks like stacked pieces of cardboard. Would you eat this? Ah, yeah, okay. Yeah, so I guess it's just all the seaweed boiled down to make these like cylinders. It's not something I've ever had. It's not something I ever want to have, but you know, a little bit like the jellied eels, if you go to Wales, it's probably worth having because this also seems a bit like peasant food and stuff that you should probably be trying if you're visiting the area. So it's probably going to go in the gross section. Okay, next up, liver and onion. If you've ever had liver, it has a very rich taste. It's probably going in the alright section. Let's go to another regional dish. If you're from Cornwall, you are Cornish. And this pasty is from Cornwall, so is a Cornish pasty. Now inside a Cornish pasty is typically like a beef and vegetables. And one thing I heard, and I don't know if it's completely true, but one thing I'm led to believe is that the actual pastry around this Cornish pasty, it wasn't supposed to be eaten. This form was supposed to be used simply as like a package to deliver the insides to like people who work like laborious jobs, like miners or something, and you would sort of pass it along, and the pastry would become completely dirty and filthy, and you'd sort of then open it up and you would eat the inside. But now if you go to bakeries, you'll just find that the actual pastry dough is really delicious on its own and you can eat the whole thing. I've not had many of them, but ones I've had are pretty scrummy. Oh, here's something which is really nice. Pie and mash. You can't really beat a good pie. Like if you go to a pub, they usually will have like a pie night, and you can get things like beef and ale, or chicken and mushroom, or you'd get a steak and kidney. Yeah, pie and mash is a good staple of British food. So the pie, being a basic but always pretty good food, is going to go in the well tasty section. Okay, a ploughman's lunch. Now, I've never had a ploughman's lunch, but I've had a ploughman's sandwich, which is sort of like a compressed version of a ploughman's lunch, which is essentially sort of like a cold meats and bread kind of spread, as you can see here, usually with like a cheese, cold meats, and then typical of a ploughman's would be pickle, which is kind of like a chutney, like a tangy chutney. If you want to try something like a pickle, then try to look in like a supermarket for a ploughman's, a cheese ploughman's, where it will be this but compressed into a sandwich. It's going to go in the pretty good though. Okay, here we go. These things I used to eat loads of before I went veggie. Pork pie is just one of the best snacks, quick snacks you can get, and is like, yeah, a tiny pie basically, always filled with pork. The only questionable thing about a pork pie is between the pastry and the pork meat is gelatin, which is obviously a vegetarian's worst nightmare, but it's also, if you get cheap ones, the gap between it can be quite large, and filled with all that jelly is bloody disgusting. But this one looks pretty good, and sometimes they fill it with things like pickle. So this one is going to go in the well tasty section. Okay, next up is the ultimate. You couldn't have a British food list without mentioning the Sunday roast. This looks okay. Don't know why there are peas there. Wouldn't typically have peas. Next we have a bit of beige, another thing to go with your pork pie, a Scotch egg, which is essentially the same as a pork pie, apart from it's a breaded outer layer, and in the middle is a hard-boiled egg. But yet again, the cheaper you go, the more gelatine you're going to have, which is going to ruin it if you have a look inside. Good little snack. Here we go, here's a good pie I just mentioned. Steak and kidney pie. Where did I put the other pie? Oh yeah, pie and mash. Steak and kidney pie you can just get on their own. Sometimes if you go to a football game, you can just go at half time for a pie and a pint. They're always pretty good, especially if it's a cold Sunday day. Steak and kidney pudding I've never had. That's going to go into the gross section. Now toad in the hole, this is lovely. And yet again, no gravy. The sausages, when they're sort of half inside this pastry, look a bit like toads, sort of like bobbing about in the water. This is really good. I mean, there's absolutely no sustenance to this dish whatsoever. And it's the most beige of all of them, but it is good. It's going in the scrummy section. Welsh rarebit. I've never had this. Welsh rarebit or Welsh rabbit is a dish consisting of hot cheese-based sauce served over slices of toasted bread. Oh wow. This dish contains no rabbit. So this sounds like rabbit, and it can also be called a Welsh rabbit, but there's no rabbit. It's essentially just cheese over toast. And cheese and toast is something I really love. Cheese melted over anything is always bloody delicious. But the fact that it's just cheese and toast means I'm demoting it to the well tasty section. And finally, this is probably the best bit of a roast dinner. A Yorkshire pudding is just a batter mix that you put in the oven and it forms this nice little cup. So that is going in the bloody delicious section. So there we go. Let's have a look at what we've got. Bloody delicious. We've got black pudding, full English breakfast, fish and chips, Sunday roast, Yorkshire pudding. The well tasty cauliflower cheese, crumpets, pie and mash, steak and kidney pie, pork pie, Scotch eggs, and Welsh rarebit. And then the scrummy bacon sandwich, chicken tikka masala, shepherd's pie, haggis, Cornish pasty, toad in the hole. The biggest beige mix of food you could ever have, but you will not be left feeling hungry. That will sort you out. If you come to England, try to find something off these top 3 aisles and just avoid the jellied eels. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe to Easy English, and if you want to learn with us and help support Easy English, then become a member. And as always, we'll see you next week. Ta-ra! Let's just make sure that I'm not talking out of my ass.